7,800 runners will compete.
KSDK, St. Louis.
The Cardinals and Expos.
Okay, while the Cardinals reload.
This is News Channel 5 at noon.
That's our news and weather for today.
Truly a hell treat, and I'm on holiday.
I'm Art Holliday, News Director at KSDK 5 on your side. Welcome to Faves, where KSDK reporters get to talk about their favorite stories. I've worked here at KSDK for over 45 years. I don't even know how many stories I've told, but it's my pleasure to share several of my favorites with you now. How's this for a great debate? Who was more influential, Miles Davis or Chuck Berry? It's one thing to have hit records. It's another thing to influence every generation that followed.
Chuck Berry, Johnny Johnson rocked Maybelline. You Never Can Tell, Sweet Little 16. When Chuck Duck walked, teens understood Roll Over Beethoven and Johnny Be Good. Birth of the Cool became kind of blue. When Miles played his horn, he kept sounding new. Bebop to hard bop, fusion to hip hop. Miles had the key and jazz was unlocked. It's only the legends who get statues. Miles Davis and Chuck Berry have statues 26 miles apart in Alton and University City. Was one musician more influential than the other?
That's a hard question.
For a conversation about Davis and Berry, two members of the St. Louis Radio Hall of Fame. Webster University instructor Bernie Hayes, currently interim director of the National Blues Museum, and his friend Tom Papa Ray, owner of Vintage Vinyl, musician, radio host, DJ. Two men who appreciate Berry and Davis.
Internationally famous.
Mm-hmm. Both a genius, each one.
Kind of Blue is the all-time top-selling jazz album.
Miles did not like to be called a jazz musician. He was just called a musician.
Besides Davis's ever-changing music styles, check out just a partial list of some of his band members. Miles University was attended by some of the greatest musicians ever.
They were geniuses, all of them, and he let them shine.
Classic rock began with Chuck Berry and his Hall of Fame sideman, Johnny Johnson. In the beginning, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were Chuck Berry cover bands on their way to legendary status. The early Stones did an entire album of Chuck Berry covers, while the Beatles frequently paid tribute to Berry in their live performances, covering Roll Over Beethoven, rock and roll music, Too Much Monkey Business, and Johnny Be Good.
Chuck Berry created the electric guitar as the lead instrument in rock and roll. He created the whole template and persona for a front man of a rock and roll band.
Chuck had more influence on the Caucasian or white market than he did on the African American market. His influence was a crossover influence.
Born just months apart in 1926, two music titans who grew up within 20 miles of each other.
I'm wondering, did they ever meet? Do you all know? Did they ever meet? Did they ever cross paths?
I don't believe so.
I have no idea. I doubt it.
What would that conversation have been like?
They would have had a mutual respect as innovators. They'd had a mutual respect as being from the same city.
Who cast the larger shadow, Chuck Berry or Miles Davis?
Both created seismic waves that went far beyond St. Louis.
One of the reasons that I pitched this story about Miles Davis and Chuck Berry is to shine a light on St. Louis's music history. And these two musicians who were born the same year, just miles apart, an international influence on their separate genres of music. And so I was able to get a couple of music experts, a couple of Radio Hall of Famers, to discuss the legacy of arguably St. Louis's two most famous musicians. One of the questions that came up during this interview, and it kind of remains unanswered, was whether Chuck Berry and Miles Davis ever met, and if they did, what did they talk about? When it comes to musical influence internationally, you'd be hard-pressed to find two more influential musicians than Chuck Berry and Miles Davis.
Bernie Miklasz is a rocker, and we're not talking music. He often rocks in his chair during his daily 3-hour talk show before telling you exactly what he thinks.
Doug Armstrong's my guy, but no one is beyond scrutiny and criticism.
The roster isn't good enough. You don't treat a Carlos Martinez as if there's maybe something wrong with him just because his personality is different.
You get paid to have an opinion about sports. It's not winning the lottery, but how close to winning the lottery is it?
It is winning the lottery.
In his office every day by 5 a.m., the 101 ESPN radio host is surrounded by personal mementos, a biography of his childhood idol, Johnny Unitas.
He's certainly for that era the greatest quarterback who ever played.
And there's the framed E Street Band memorabilia. Bernie has seen the boss 121 times. With apologies to Bruce Springsteen, baby, he was born to write. Ever since his Baltimore childhood, when Miklas wrote for his dad, the late Bernie Sr.
We would go to games, Colts games, Orioles games, whatever, or even if we're watching a great game, I would just get so fired up. I'd go to my room and write a story about it and hand it to my father and show him. Still chasing the deadline.
Surprisingly, one of St. Louis's most influential sports voices doesn't have a college degree. Miklas dropped out of community college and learned journalism on the mean streets of Baltimore. The now-defunct Baltimore News American hired Miklas as a teenager.
They said, "Come on, kid, we're going to take you out. There's a triple homicide in West Baltimore, And I'd go out to these crime scenes, and he said, "Go talk to that cop. Go do this, go do." That's how you learn journalism, by doing it.
Before Miklas left the Post-Dispatch after 26 years to concentrate on radio full-time, he estimates he wrote over 10,000 newspaper columns, including the 2005 NLCS in Houston, Game 5, when one column wasn't enough.
And I'm telling you, as soon as we press the send button, Cardinals lose. Boom! Pujols just hit a home run. He hit it halfway to Dallas. We got to rewrite our whole stinking column.
Sometimes Bernie gets personal on the air, talking about his lifelong battle with weight.
Just feeling stupid, worrying about my own health, knowing that I'm putting family, causing them worry.
It didn't help that young Bernie could eat whatever he wanted at his grandparents' general store.
So that's where this curse started, me just like just running wild through my grandparents' store, like eating all the sweets. Of course, I'm talking about Chris Long. He's done a hell of a job for the Eagles.
With several ex-Rams playing in the Super Bowl, it's a reminder that St. Louis is likely done as an NFL city.
I hate that stain on the reputation of St. Louis as a sports town because it's terribly unfair. I really think the Eagles got a hell of a chance to win this one.
After covering 32 Super Bowls in person, Miklas is happy to watch this one at home like the rest of us. And on the day after the game, listeners will know exactly how he feels about it.
I mean, that's just stupid.
Art Holliday.
I'm all fired up now.
5 on your side.
So this story came about because we needed a pre-Super Bowl story, and I decided to profile Bernie Miklas, who had covered over 30 Super Bowls during his time as a columnist and a radio reporter. Over the decades, he has become one of St. Louis's most important voices when it comes to sports, and he has a remarkable backstory that I was able to share. Of course, part of his story is that he is a fanatic when it comes to Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, having seen them many, many times live in concert. Bernie's educational background was a really interesting nugget. One of the most accomplished newspaper columnists and radio broadcasters in the country doesn't have a college degree because he dropped out early. This was a great story about Albert Pujols hitting a home run that wrecked the column that he wrote, and he had to rewrite it. When you have the opportunity to profile someone who's very accomplished, you know you already are starting with a great character. And in the case of someone like Bernie Miklas, he's done so much in the world of sports and has become such a prominent voice in St. Louis that it was a great privilege to be able to tell his story.
How do you get to Carnegie Hall?
Practice, practice, practice. That's not how Liam got there, though. He didn't like to practice.
When a talented musician like 18-year-old Liam Picker sits down at the keyboard, 88 black and white keys can sound like a million colors.
I was incredibly proud of my son. I was proud of his talent. I would watch his hands. I loved to watch his hands.
The joy Liam felt from playing and composing music wasn't nearly enough.
He went through a number of antidepressants and other types of drugs to help him, and they never seemed to work.
Liam was well enough to know how sick he was.
When he had several instances where he had tried to take his life, I think after that, it sort of became harder to see a positive outcome.
Depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, social anxiety. Liam waged the private war against his mental illnesses, and eventually he died trying.
The pain of living was too great, and that's why he left.
Lisa Steele is Liam's piano teacher.
My vision for him and his talent would be to compose music for soundtracks, movies, even television or commercials even. He could look at something or read a passage of poetry and take the words or the picture and distill it down into music that you could feel.
To make sense of the senseless, Liam's mother began an online search for a nonprofit music foundation the family could support in Liam's name. She landed on the website of the Harmony for Peace Foundation based in Pennsylvania.
It is a foundation that supports the arts, especially music, for gifted children.
Spread the love, peace, and happiness.
Lisa Picker began an email conversation with the organization founder, Tomoko Tori.
4 or 5 months ago sent me an email and said if you have any of Liam's original compositions, we would love to have someone play them at our Christmas concert at Carnegie Hall.
Winter was the composition the Pickers sent to Harmony for Peace to be performed by Gohei Nishikawa. What was it about Liam's story that resonated with you?
I lost my father last year. He committed suicide and from depression.
One week before the Carnegie Hall concert, Nishikawa flew over 900 miles from New York to meet the Picker family in St. Charles, Missouri, even performing on Liam's piano.
I'm planning on keep performing his music everywhere I go in Japan, and to introduce his music and his story so he can travel with me in spirit.
6 days before Christmas, Mike and Lisa Picker were in New York with 14 other family members. Destination Carnegie Hall for the Christmas concert where Nishikawa would perform Winter.
For Liam Picker, the teenage composer who struggled with depression, the question, how do you get to Carnegie Hall, was answered on a bittersweet Monday night in December.
It was just incredibly touching to us that Gohei played the piece so beautifully.
The piano, it was part of Liam. Liam was part of the piano. When he was sad, when he was frustrated, it all came out through his fingers.
The Picker family no longer has Liam, but they will always have Winter in New York.
Liam wanted more than anybody to feel normal, to feel well, to be happy. He didn't want to leave us.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind about this story about Liam Picker is that it's not every day you get to go to Carnegie Hall to shoot a story. But I remember coming into work one day, and on my desk was information about a story pitch in St. Charles about a local family, and there was a Post-it note on the story note saying, "This seems like an Art Holliday story." And the assignment editor meant that he knew I had an interest in covering mental health stories as well as music, and this story combined both of those. Liam's piano instructor thought that had Liam lived, that he was destined for greatness in the field of composing, but obviously that didn't happen for him because of his struggle with mental health. It was fascinating to me that the family randomly found Harmony for Peace because of an internet search, and that began a dialogue with the executive director of Harmony for Peace, offering to play one of Liam's songs at one of the most famous concert halls in the world, Carnegie Hall. The musician who performed Liam's composition at Carnegie Hall, Gohei Nishikawa, surprised the Picker family during his interview with me when he revealed that his own father took his life because of depression. I got to document a very bittersweet night for the Picker family at Carnegie Hall because they were still trying to make sense of their son's taking his own life, but also being memorialized at Carnegie Hall. Being able to videotape Gohei Nishikawa's performance of Winter at Carnegie Hall was a really beautiful way to end the story. And then when he grabbed the photo while the applause was going, I mean, it was perfect. The Picker family wants to continue using Liam's story to raise awareness of teenage depression.
Bob Heil remembers asking actor Dan Aykroyd if he'd say hello to his wife, who was a fan.
He said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Bob Heil." He said, "Bob Heil? You're the guy that did the talk box?" I'm going, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "Congratulations and thank you for your contribution to the music industry."
Thank you indeed. There are excellent reasons that sound engineer Bob Heil of Marissa, Illinois, has a display at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Behind him in the photo, the speakers, mixing boards, and equipment that revolutionized concert sound. And then there's the talk box. Just ask Joe Walsh.
It's a great picture.
Or Peter Frampton about Heil and his talk box innovation. The talk box Frampton made famous was a Christmas present from Frampton's wife Penny McCall, courtesy of Heil's design.
So I sent Penny McCall a talk box. He always gives me the kudos of building that and giving that to Penny, because it did make his career.
Heil's life changed forever on a February night in 1970 at the Fox Theater. The Grateful Dead arrived in St. Louis without sound equipment that had been confiscated in New Orleans. Heil found himself on the phone with Jerry Garcia, the Dead's guitarist.
And Jerry said, "You have all this gear, man? What kind of amplifiers?" I said, "They're Macintosh." "You have Macintosh amplifiers?" We hit the front page of Billboard magazine that this little music shop in Marissa, Illinois got the Grateful Dead contract.
After improving the Grateful Dead's concert sound, rockers from all over the world sought out Heil, although he didn't know most of them.
I said, "Well, who are you?" He said, "I'm the Who." I said, "No, who are you?" He said, because I didn't know.
Heil found himself brainstorming with the Who's Pete Townsend in 1973.
4-channel sound. Do you think you could build a sound system that we can move Roger's voice around an arena?
Heil designed a custom mixing board for the Who's Quadrophenia tour.
We went out and did Quadrophenia. It was a marvelous time for everybody because nobody had done that. And the sound was incredible. PR-35, like Carrie Underwood, Charlie Daniels.
This last year, I wanted to take this moment to wish Bob Heil a sincere congratulations on receiving the Parnelli Award.
Superstar clients like Slash, Stevie Wonder, and Jeff Beck recognize Heil microphones and sound equipment as the gold standard. Heil recently sold over 300 microphones to Sirius Satellite Radio, all made possible because a young man loved ham radios, sound systems, and satellite dishes, a rock and roll sound pioneer with creativity and imagination.
We were just doing it because it was fun. And as it turned out, some of these groups would become magnificent.
They became legends.
They did.
And so did Bob Heil.
The great thing about profiling Bob Heil is that he had so many amazing stories about rock stars that we're all very familiar with, like Peter Frampton and his role in creating the talk box. Obviously his relationship with The Who, which is what put him on the map with their Quadrophenia tour, asking him, can you make the sound bounce around to all four corners of the stadium? And he was able to do that.
Rockers from all over the world sought out Heil, although he didn't know most of them.
I said, well, who are you? He said, I'm the Who. I said, no, who are you?
That was one of the best quotes in the story. Who are you? We're the Who. Here's the thing, some of Bob Heil's equipment is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's probably time that they create a new category for the people who create the sound that makes us go to those concerts, because he was a trailblazer in that area.
The diehards camp out as if it's on cue, another season to play 162. The Redbirds are back to jump into the fray.
I'm pumped. How about you? It's opening day. Woo!
Kinda like Christmas for a Cardinals fan, a reminder of Gibby,
The Wizard,
the man. Come on down to the ballpark for a baseball buffet.
It's as good as it gets because it's opening day.
The Clydesdales high-stepping onto the field. Hall of Famers keep trucking to great fan appeal. An amazing spectacle, the Cardinal way.
It's as good as it gets because it's home opening day.
Who knows what will happen, even though we predict. Can Jordan Hicks hit 106? Yachty and Goldie, Carp and Jose, all ready to go. It's home opening day. So the chase begins for Championship 12. It'll take timely hitting, great pitching, good health. A red October, it seems far away. So let's stay in the moment.
It's opening day!
So the Cardinals have been around for over a century, so that's over 100 opening days. So how do you tell a familiar story in a different, entertaining way? Well, I decided to rhyme it and enlist some of the fans to help me rhyme this opening day story. Sometimes a reporter is given an assignment and you have the ability to actually have some fun with it. And this was one of those instances, because opening day in St. Louis is such a communal experience for the entire community. Everybody gets into it, and that was a fun story.